Accident? Funny how you white folks always have accidents when it comes to respecting black men. You intentionally stepped on me.
Honestly, for a second, I thought I'd misheard him. What did being white have to do with me accidentally stepping on him? I wanted to argue or just say something, but he started talking again.
You think you're better than everyone else? Walking around here like you belong? Like you aren't just another junkie hiding in the midst of decent people?
Junkie? What the hell was he talking about? Where did that come from? I don't do drugs, I live here, I work here, I have friends here. I do not appreciate you comparing me to a junkie. I'm a responsible lady.
Prove it. Let's see you try to prove your responsibility. I'd like to search your bag and house. I have a strong feeling that you're hoarding drugs.
Before I could say a word, he yanked my bag, searched it, and emptied it onto the floor. Then he ordered me to pick everything up and loudly apologize while on my knees. If you'd asked me 2 months back if I was scared about the cops in this area, I'd have said I wasn't. I had lived in this neighborhood for years. I wasn't blind to the stories and the quiet warnings about how some cops treated people around here. I had seen the way they looked at the people in the white community, how they spoke to them, how they wielded their power like a hammer, ready to strike at the first sign of resistance. But I never thought I'd be on the receiving end of it. Not until that day. It was just supposed to be a quick trip to the mall. Grab a few groceries, maybe stop by the bookstore if I had time. I wasn't in a rush, just strolling, minding my business, thinking about what I'd make for dinner that night. And then, accidentally, I stepped on someone. But unfortunately, it wasn't just anyone. It was a freaking cop. The moment my foot barely brushed his boot, I felt a jolt of dread spike through my chest. I started to apologize immediately, but before I could even get the words out, his hand clamped around my wrist like I was a criminal.
You've got some nerve stepping on a uniformed man.
I froze in fear. His grip was tight, uncomfortably so. He was truly in his uniform, but it wasn't the uniform that scared me. It was his eyes, his cold, sharp, and sucked eyes, making me feel so scared. At that moment, I wished to just escape from him. I'm so sorry, sir. I wasn't looking where I was going. I would never repeat it.
Sorry doesn't cut it, girl. You stepped on a cop and that's a crime.
People were watching as he roughly pulled me closer. I could feel their eyes on us, some stopping mid-step, others glancing from the corners of their eyes before quickly looking away. But no one said anything. No one stepped in. They never did, so it wasn't new. I just expected some humanity that didn't exist. It was an accident, I swear. I sincerely apologize. It will never repeat itself.
Accident? Funny how you white folks always have accidents when it comes to respecting black men. You intentionally stepped on me.
Honestly, for a second, I thought I'd misheard him. What did being white have to do with me accidentally stepping on him? I wanted to argue or just say something, but he started talking again.
You think you're better than everyone else? Walking around here like you belong? Like you aren't just another junkie hiding in the midst of decent people?
Junkie? What the hell was he talking about? Where did that come from? I don't do drugs, I live here, I work here, I have friends here. I do not appreciate you comparing me to a junkie. I'm a responsible lady.
Prove it. Let's see you try to prove your responsibility. I'd like to search your bag and house. I have a strong feeling that you're hoarding drugs.
Before I could say a word, he yanked my bag, searched it, and emptied it onto the floor. Then he ordered me to pick everything up and loudly apologize while on my knees. You have no right to do that. Do you even have a warrant? Why would you call me a drug addict when we're just meeting for the first time today? And accidentally, for that matter.
Listen to me, young woman. You better show me your place, or I'm going to take you to the station and give you a reason to be in jail.
I felt so afraid. It wasn't normal and it wasn't right. I knew I should have pushed more and stood my ground, but that was impossible. The way he was looking at me was as if he was waiting for me to push back, like he was waiting for an excuse to have something strong against me. I knew better than to argue, so I agreed to show him my place. He pushed me into his car. I'd hoped it would just be to see the building and leave, but he had other plans. When we finally reached the building, he demanded to follow me into my apartment. I didn't want to, but because I was still trying to evade trouble, I allowed him in. Once he entered, he started looking and moving around. He went to my bookshelves, my small kitchen, my bedroom, everywhere. He walked through my living room like he owned the place. I kept quiet, watching him do everything he wanted. Finally, After what seemed like forever, he stopped.
No drugs, huh? That's strange. Y'all white kids are nothing but junkies.
I don't think you should associate that with my race. I know quite a lot of black junkies too.
I will ignore you only because you're clean. Kindly mind yourself from now, else I won't hesitate to arrest you next time.
I didn't say anything until he finally left my house. That was only when I felt relieved. I thought it had ended. Unfortunately, it hadn't. He turned out to be a creep. When it started, I brushed it off as being just paranoia. But it didn't go away. Every time I stepped outside, every time I walked to work, every time I unlocked my apartment door, the feeling of being watched overwhelmed me. When I left for work in the morning, there were footsteps behind me. If I looked back, I wouldn't find anyone. Inside my own apartment, I felt it the most. While I cooked dinner, I would feel someone's eyes on me. But if I checked, there'd be no one there. When I took a shower, I would feel someone watching me. I could hear movements sometimes. It was so scary, but I couldn't tell my friends because I didn't have anything to confirm. I didn't want to be told that I was hallucinating because I knew I wasn't. At night, while in my bedroom, I swore I could hear something. I kept trying to tell myself I was overreacting, but I knew I wasn't. I just needed a confirmation that I wasn't imagining things. One night, I received my confirmation. I was in my living room having dinner when my door was pushed open and the least person I expected to see walked in. It was the cop from last time. The same one who had accused me of being a junkie and searched my apartment without a warrant. Only now, he wasn't wearing his uniform. He reeked of alcohol as he staggered into my apartment like he had every right to be there. I was so scared. "What the hell? Why are you in my house? Get out!" He didn't listen. He started walking even closer to me.
I've been watching you, you know?
"You need to leave. Now, get out of my house."
Why would I leave when I finally have you all to myself? I don't have to sneak around.
I grabbed my fork out of fear. "You come one step closer, and I swear to God I will stab you." I brandished the fork like a weapon. I could see that he was scared. Eventually, when he saw that I was going to do it, he backed off, but he promised to be back. I was awake throughout the night. The next morning, I ran to the police station as fast as my legs could carry me. But I met the shock of my life when I saw the same cop there. I didn't know that was the station he worked at.
Well, look who it is. The white junkie came to pay me a visit.
I thought the other black officers would stop him, but they didn't seem to be on my side. Of course, they would be with him.
Man, you really got this one rattled, huh? Have you seen her naked yet? I doubt you haven't.
They laughed. I was so close to crying. "You shouldn't be doing this. He broke into my apartment. He's been stalking me, and I'm shocked that you all know about it yet did nothing."
Whoa, calm down, sweetheart. You should be lucky to have him stalking you. We have enough black women, but he chose you.
They laughed again, and all I wanted was to see them get punished.
You should go home, miss. You don't want to make false accusations against a good cop like him. No one will listen to you.
He's not a good cop. None of you are.
Now, that's a heavy accusation. And without proof? I don't know. Sounds like someone's just looking for attention.
They laughed again. I burst out crying as I ran away from there. I heard the cop promising to see me tonight, but I didn't stop. Once I got home, I called one of my favorite friends. Devin was a black man, but he was a good person. I'd known him for so long, and I knew he believed in people getting justice. When he arrived, I told him everything, from the very beginning at the mall. I'd never seen Devin look so angry.
How dare him? That's so unprofessional. It's his job to protect you, not harass you. That's a very punishable offense, and he won't be escaping it. I'm calling my uncle.
Devin's uncle was the chief of police. The man was also a good man. I'd heard about different people getting justice through his help. While the phone rang, I prayed for the man to ask help me. He was the only one who could punish those bastards. When the man answered the call, Devin explained the situation. I was so happy when his uncle wanted to send officers immediately, but Devin stopped him.
Not yet. He needs to learn something first. I will teach him a lesson.
I asked Devin what the lesson was, and he told me his plan. I was sure that the cop would definitely come by because he said it back at the station. We got everything ready for our plan, just in case he came. Devin stayed the night. We waited. Deep down, I was really hoping he would come. I needed to deal with the issue and end it all. Fortunately, around midnight, the door was forced open again.
Well, you don't have a fork this time. I'll see what will save you.
He didn't see Devin at first, but when he did, it was too late. Devin lunged at him, punching him in the face and knocking him to the floor. The cop cried out in pain. He tried to fight back, but I grabbed a baseball bat and smashed it over his shoulder. As Devin pummeled his face with punches, I struck him mercilessly. When we were done, we forced him to sit up and tied his hands behind his back. Devin then grabbed his phone and called his uncle. Minutes later, sirens filled the air. Officers burst in, dragging the cop up. His lip was split, his face swollen. We didn't end it there. We took him to his station and I pointed at the other cops who mocked me. They were all arrested. The next day, his arrest was everywhere. News channels, papers, social media. At trial, the evidence was clear. The scratches on my door, Devin serving as a witness, the footage from the station where they mocked me. Devin's uncle made sure every detail was exposed. The cop got 5 years for stalking, harassment, and abuse of power. His accomplices got 3 for covering up his actions. Their badges were stripped. Their names were blacklisted. They weren't just fired. They were humiliated. I watched them without pity as they were led away in cuffs. Justice was served, but I still moved away 2 months later because I was traumatized. A few months later, while I was in a different state, Devin called me with some news. Rumors were circulating about what had happened to the cop in prison. From the moment he arrived, the whispers began.
That's the cop from the news. 5 years ain't long enough for what he did. We're gonna make sure he pays every day.
At first, he tried to act tough, walking with the same arrogance he once had in uniform. But behind those prison walls, there was no badge to protect him, only enemies. The inmates knew what he had done to countless white women. Some of them had even been locked up because of him. His nights were the worst. Sleep became impossible. Every creak, every whisper sent his heart racing. Someone scratched at his cell door at random hours, whispering his name just to mess with him. His nerves were shot, his body always tense, waiting for the next attack. Then came the messages. A note left on his bunk read, "Dead men don't need to eat." A carving on the wall said, "Payback's a bitch, ain't it?" One night, he woke up to find his mattress slashed. His clothes were stolen, forcing him to beg for spares. His food tray was knocked out of his hands at every meal, and if he dared to complain, it only got worse. Then came the beatings. One afternoon, he was cornered in the showers. A group of inmates blocked the exit, cracking their knuckles.
You like throwing your weight around, cop? Let's see how tough you are without a gun.
Blows rained down before he could even fight back. Fists, knees, elbows. By the time they were done, he was curled up on the cold tile, gasping for air, blood mixing with the water. The final blow came when an inmate set him up, falsely claiming that the cop had attacked and tried to kill him. As a result, his sentence was extended by 6 more years. Serves him right. Thanks for watching.
My son wants new shoes and clothes. Give me your salary to get it for him.
But Mother, how can I give you my salary for David's shoes and clothes? That money is for me. I need it to survive.
You don't have to survive. There are different knives in the kitchen and different oceans in the world. Stab yourself or drown in one.
Mother?
Stop calling me that, you unfortunate child. Your brother's going to inherit his grandfather's properties and we'll be rich. A girl? No, I want a boy. I don't want to give birth to a girl.
Are you sure it's a girl that's in there? We're not interested in having a girl.
My father wasn't wealthy, but his father was. However, before he married my mother, his father died, and in his will, he asked that none of his properties should be given to my father. The reason was because he was very irresponsible and didn't prove to be a son that could take care of the things he left behind.
I'm his only child. How could he do this to me?
My grandfather, in his will, had instructed that his properties be left in the care of my grandmother until my father had a son. When the son gets to 18 years of age, he'd be permitted to take over. My father was furious, but there was still hope. My mother tried to calm him down.
I'll do my best to give you a son and 18 years will pass by quickly.
My father was reassured by her words. My grandmother was still in her 60s, so she was very fit to handle everything. 2 months after that happened, my mother was pregnant with me. You can imagine their excitement when they discovered the news. My father was even happier. However, that joy was cut short when they went for an ultrasound scan. They didn't want to believe that they'd been excited for nothing. They visited 3 more hospitals, but all showed the same results.
You're having a girl.
They hated me from that moment. When I was born, my mother even asked for the doctors to put me up for adoption, but they refused because my parents had no valid reason. They were forced to return home with me. I was only 6 months old when they took me to my grandmother to live with her. They began trying for another child again. One day, 2 years later, I was with my grandmother when she got a call from my parents. They'd finally had another child, my brother. I was excited. My small mind thought they'd finally come take me back for us to all live together, but it was far from what I imagined. The only time I ever saw my parents or my brother was when my grandma visited them with me, and they always acted like I wasn't a part of the family. They both ignored me. A year later, my grandmother had to leave the country for something important, and I was taken back to my parents.
Can't you take her with you, Mother? We don't need her here.
Yes, Mother. Take her with you.
My grandmother refused. She reminded them that I was their child and they must take care of me. They were eventually forced to accept me. My grandmother assured me that she'd be back soon, but for 10 whole years, she didn't return. Even though she wasn't present, she ensured to always send my parents and I money and took care of all my needs. However, my greedy parents took all the money. They refused to send me to the school my grandmother asked them to, didn't give me enough food, barely spent time with me, and only took care of my brother. Once I was 18 and out of high school, my parents forced me to get a job. I did find one at a factory. It was extremely stressful, but I had no choice. My parents also stopped giving me money and kept everything my grandmother sent to themselves.
David is more important than you. We would sell you off if we could.
The only reason you're still here is because my mother knows you. Your existence is nearly useless to us.
My job was barely enough to feed me, but I couldn't quit. I had no phone and couldn't contact my grandmother. 2 months after I got my first pay, my mother suddenly came to me.
Give me some money. The cash your grandmother sent us is gone.
But I have no money, Mother. The only money I have is for food.
You evil child. Are you hiding money from us? Would you want your brother to get skinny like you?
I tried to explain to her that my salary was little, but she wasn't having it. She grabbed my bag and searched through it.
You stupid liar. Didn't you say you had no money?
In tears, I begged her to return the money, but she refused and stormed off. I broke down into tears, frustrated at their behavior. I couldn't go to work that day as I had no energy because of how hungry I was. The next morning, I walked out of my room to see my parents and brother, enjoying a meal at the dining table. I walked to them, my stomach growling. "Can I get some food, please? I'm starving."
We have no food reserved for you. Get lost.
Mother said you aren't part of our family, so leave, stupid.
I turned away with my head bowed and my eyes dripping with tears. I decided to go to my workplace.
You're fired. Please, leave.
I knew he'd say that. It was a rule that any worker who was absent without notice would be fired. However, I was starving. I swallowed my pride and went on my knees. "Please give me some food, I'm hungry." The man was touched seeing my tears and ordered some food for me. He asked if I had no parents, and I explained my situation to him. My grandmother is the only one who cares about me. She's not in this country anymore and doesn't know how I'm being treated by my parents. I also can't tell her because I have no phone. He couldn't believe his ears.
How can a parent treat their own child so badly?
After our discussion, he gave me my job back. I was more than grateful to him. The next month, once I got my salary, my mother came again. I had no idea how she knew that I'd gotten paid.
My son wants new shoes and clothes. Give me your salary to get it for him.
But Mother, how can I give you my salary for David's shoes and clothes? That money is for me. I need it to survive.
You don't have to survive. There are different knives in the kitchen and different oceans in the world. Stab yourself or drown in one.
Mother?
Stop calling me that, you unfortunate child. Your brother's going to inherit his grandfather's properties and will be rich. You better buy him things now so he can have some pity on you when he's rich.
I cried and begged, but she refused and stood on her words that I hand all of my salary over to her. When I refused, she attempted to grab my bag, but I was faster and took it first. "I won't let you bully me anymore. Since you don't regard me as your child, at least let me have peace on my own." I regretted my actions immediately. She called my brother, who was only 16, but had grown so big.
She doesn't want to give us money for the shoes and clothes you requested. Teach her a lesson.
I knew my brother also hated me, but there was a little hope in me that he might stand up for his sister. However, that hope was shattered when he sent a resounding slap across my face.
How dare you refuse my mother's request, you stupid girl. Your money belongs to us. I'm going to teach you a lesson you'll never forget.
Due to how lanky I was, I couldn't fight back. While he continued beating me, my mother took all my salary and stood at a corner, laughing. When he was finally done, I was left bruised and in severe pains. I could barely sleep that night. The next morning, my father walked into my room. He saw my condition and still slapped me.
Don't you dare disrespect my wife again. You're a mistake to us, and you have no rights in this house.
In pain, I got ready and left for work. My boss was shocked to see the condition I was in. He asked me to return home after someone helped me dress my wounds. Before I left, he gave me a phone he wasn't using anymore and told me to find a way to call my grandmother and inform her of what was happening. I thanked him and left. When I got home, I saw my father sleeping. I quietly took his phone, took my grandmother's number from it, and left the house again. Luckily, I was able to reach her. In tears, I explained everything to her. She was furious and promised to return the next day. I went back to the house, relieved to know that my sufferings would end the next day. I was in my room the next afternoon when I heard my grandmother's voice.
Where's my granddaughter?
I dashed out of my room. As she saw how I looked, she broke down in tears.
You're all evil. I'm taking my granddaughter with me. Well, Mother, we have no use of her here. You can take her. We're fine with our lovely David.
Yes, take her. We don't need her in our lives. She shouldn't have been born in the first place.
My grandmother was shocked hearing such words from them. She asked me to pack my things and go with her. We left the country the next day. My grandmother let me rest for a month before she began training me in the family's business. I asked her why, and she told me.
You'll know soon.
For 2 whole years, my parents never cared to ask about me. My grandmother continued sending them money. I'd become very good at the business that I was made to manage one of the branches. My father called my grandmother one day while we were both eating at a restaurant.
Mother, David is 18 now. It's time to hand over the business to him, according to Father's will.
I'll be back in the country next week. We'll talk about this then.
The next week, we both traveled back home. Even though they tried to hide it, I could see their looks of shock to see me. The lawyer walked in a few minutes later, and we all sat down.
Now, my dearest son, we didn't read your father's will completely. Can you please read the rest of the will to them?
And if his son is irresponsible too, my property should be handed to his daughter. And if she's like them, let it all be given to charity after my wife's death.
Just like you, you've both trained your son to be evil-minded and reckless. Ava told me how you both made him a spoilt brat. Well, I'm sorry to break your hearts, but Ava here will be in charge of all the businesses. She's well-trained and also has a hard-working and relentless spirit. She's humble and kind, unlike you both. However, there is one other matter that needs to be addressed.
What are you talking about, you old crone? Nothing is more important than my son getting what he is owed.
But that's just it. He isn't your son. I hired a private investigator and he managed to get a DNA sample from your son, and sure enough, he isn't related to you. So I had them look into if you had adopted him and found out that you had illegally purchased him. These fine gentlemen are here to see to it that you get what you actually deserve.
Just then, several police officers entered the room and put my parents in handcuffs and dragged them away, leaving my brother behind. He was stunned to hear that the people that he had thought of as his parents his whole life had actually just been his kidnappers. After that, my parents were sentenced to several years in prison for the crime of trafficking a child. I knew that I could probably get them in even more trouble if I pressed charges against them for the years of abuse against me. But I knew that once they were released from prison, that they would be poor and unable to get jobs on account of being criminals. It was enough that I was given everything that they had ever wanted and that their hopes and dreams were taken from them. It might sound cruel of me to say, but I feel no sympathy for them at all. And as for my brother, well, he ended up living on the streets, and the last I heard of him, he was begging for money and had become addicted to drugs. It's such a pity, really. He could have had a chance of a good life had he never met my parents. Thanks for watching. Make sure to subscribe and leave a comment down below saying I subscribed, and we will try our best to reply to your comment.
Hi there, I'm Sam, and just yesterday I got the biggest work promotion of my life. Despite this huge success, it had actually been quite the rough journey, especially since growing up. I never had that many supportive figures there to help me. But here's my story from the start, and how I managed to push through, get rid of my toxic family, and become successful. I was adopted at a young age by a woman named Leslie and a man named Robert. They'd already had a son who was about the same age as me, and his name was Marcos. I can't remember too much of my childhood because as a kid, there's not really much you'd notice. There was only one thing that I found a little strange. Marcos received new gifts every year for his birthday, but I would get really shabby and tiny gifts. Often I'd get just a slice of cake and nothing else though. But this is the least of the problems I would soon have. Marcos and I started school together when we were 6. Things just took an even worse tumble from there. For whatever reason, I just wasn't as smart as my brother. I wasn't even that bad of a student, but I wasn't as good as Marcos. Mom and Dad made sure to emphasize this. They would go out and get lots of delicious foods for my brother to celebrate his success, while I was sent to my room to be out of their sight. They would also only take Marcos on vacations, but later edit me in for their social media. This occurred for literally my entire life up to now.
Why can't you be more like your brother? I should have adopted an infant baby. The older ones will never be successful.
You're right, Leslie. We can just send the failure off with some money after he's 18. He'll manage, however.
As a 6-year-old, I really didn't understand what Mom meant by this, but I'm assuming that she was upset by my grades. On the rare occasions that I got a score higher than Marcos, my mom would completely neglect me and begin sulking. I heard my mom telling Marcos that he has to absolutely destroy me in school. I felt a little threatened, to be honest, but it was whatever. As school got harder and harder, my life at home also progressively got worse. I watched as Marcos signed up for countless sports and activities, as well as tutors, but I got nothing. By the time I was 10, I didn't get a single celebration or gift for my birthday either, while Marcos over here was celebrating something new every week and getting all the love from my parents. Well, he wasn't getting love all the time. Often throughout the years, Mom and Dad would hold family reunions, and I was almost always taken along. When I was first adopted, Leslie had announced it to everyone about what she'd done, so I think it would be a little strange if you had a kid that you never brought out. During the reunions, Mom would begin speaking about me very highly in front of the relatives, and I could still remember just how impressed they were by my achievements. Obviously, she also boasted about Marcos, but these rare occasions were a chance for Leslie to show off how good of a person she was to adopt a kid.
Where's my baby Sam? There he is! I just knew our family was missing something, and after Sam, he brought smiles to our faces and helped make our family more beautiful than ever. Did you know that Sam won the Perfect Attendance Award for almost every year?
Yes, I just love my boy. We play football in the backyard every week just to help exercise ourselves and have some father-son bonding. Isn't that right?
Oh, and of course, I can't forget the apple of my eye, Marcos. Marcos here is a straight-A student and on the baseball team. And he plays the flute as well, isn't he just my beautiful little musician?
I knew damn well that my parents were lying, but I didn't have the heart to speak up. After all, the relatives weren't really my relatives. Would they believe their biological cousin or some random kid they adopted? By the time we were almost about to graduate middle school, Marcos was one of the most academically powered students and a great baseball player. I was struggling to get an A, but I still managed. I became quite depressed due to my parents, so I smoked for a little while but quit eventually. After this, I was able to keep my school scores at least a little bit afloat. My classes were hard, and I wanted to give up. But while I was in physical education, I discovered something about myself. I was really good at basketball. Even the PE coach offered to teach me more skills for free. I mean, now that I look back on it, I had the heights for it. And I always used to shoot hoops into my brother's basketball hoop when Leslie and Robert had taken Marcos out for their weekly treat. Among everyone that I'd met in my life so far, the only people that had ever taken a liking to me was the basketball coach and a guy in my algebra class, whose name was Jacob. Jacob wasn't the most popular, but he wasn't a loner either. He had actually quite the amount of friends, but for some reason, he decided to talk to me one day, and we've actually come to know each other pretty well. He also happened to get on the high school basketball team the next year. Jacob soon learned about my issues, and we had a long and thoughtful conversation about how I can manage to help myself while still living in this terrible situation. I agreed, and from then on, I knew that I had to take things into my own hands and not let anyone in my family bring me down. I didn't have a phone to contact Jacob, but I could email him through my brother's old computer. Since he was so spoiled, he'd never remember that one of his laptops was missing. For the next couple of weeks, I used my study hall time to learn basketball from Coach and Jacob, and I also conversated with Jacob back and forth. As high school started, Coach helped me enroll into the basketball team despite the deadline already being reached. While that was going on, I started noticing that Marcos was becoming more and more laid back. I had a few ideas in mind as to why he was becoming like this. Marcos was actually a certified genius with a high IQ, so maybe he thought that he didn't really need to work too hard to effortlessly get good scores in school. He'd also gotten a girlfriend and an yearly internship, so he probably thought his life was all set. This kind of mindset was very dangerous, but it was his life, not mine. I didn't dare to tell my parents about what I'd been doing because I was scared of them thinking that I was trying to take over Marcos's throne at home. So I just kept to myself by playing basketball with Jacob and making sure my schoolwork was all done. At this point, Marcos had really become somewhat of a failure. But for some reason, Leslie and Robert hadn't noticed at all. It wasn't like Marcos was failing classes miserably, but it was evident that he would do the bare minimum for classes. Anyhow, the years passed and I was doing really well in school. I learned how to study efficiently so that I could get the highest grades possible, and it did work. I also managed to sneak out of my family's house every night to hang out with Jacob, who also gave me a phone for my birthday. I'm so grateful for him. The sneaking out part might not be a very good student-like trait, but I still did it nevertheless. I was becoming one of Jacob's closest friends, and we had so much fun just having talks throughout the late nights. So, are you ready for graduation? What are you gonna do in college? You know, I'm honestly a little scared to graduate, but at least I'll get away from Leslie and Robert. As for college, I'm going for computer science. You? Same, but I'm going for bioengineering. I'm pretty decent at biology, so I'll shoot for that. Our school's basketball team did very well every year, and I was even promoted to be the leader with Jacob during our senior year. We won championship after championship, and everything felt like a fever dream. Although my home life was still incredibly dull, I tried as hard as I could to get past. I graduated high school with a 5.0 GPA, and through basketball, I was able to get a full scholarship to my dream university. Jacob also got a scholarship to his university, which happened to be only an hour away from mine. As I was packing to leave, though, I was stopped by my family. I'd just gotten notice from Jacob that he was about to pick me up for the airport, and now this has to happen. Of course.
Where do you think you're going?
Mom, I got accepted to college, so I'm going to go and get my degree.
You can't do that. You must have cheated on your exams. How did Marcos end up to be even worse than you?
Don't ask me, Mom. Ask Marcos. While you decided to neglect me for all these years of my life, I've been using my time wisely and learning how to take care of myself. Goodbye, Mom and Dad. I loved you, but I'm sure you didn't love me.
Whatever. We never wanted you here in the first place. You're probably going to just sleep around with girls the whole time and end up failing. We don't need the loser that you are.
Goodness. I felt kicked for the first time in a while, but this was the last time I planned on ever seeing them again. That was a good thing. As I stormed out of the house with my belongings, Jacob had just pulled up to the driveway. I got in and explained the whole situation. Jacob calmed me down after a bit, and we caught our plane to the city that our universities were at. From then on, the two of us rented a home together, and life became absolute heaven. I wasn't living with the narcissistic weight of my parents on my back. Eventually, 4 long years of schooling had passed, and I finally earned my degrees, finding a good job fairly quickly. Jacob did too, and we were both so extremely successful. We both decided not to find partners yet, but instead kept each other company until our jobs were fully stable. This was fine by both of us, and as time went on, I was almost healed from the neglect I had faced so long ago. One day, I found a post that was made by Leslie. It was a whole sob story on how her son had become addicted to drugs and alcohol. Since his failure to get accepted into any schools, he had even sold the parents' car, and one day, after so much alcohol, he burned down part of their house. He was enrolled into community college, but even then, became too tired to go. I felt a bit sad, but I think that Leslie and Roberts let their son have too much for only a little bit of work. I privately messaged the account and sent a photo of me and my promotion. There was an immediate response from my mom begging to send over money to help her family. I read the message and tried not to smile. Sorry, Mom, but you never helped me. So why would I do that now? Thanks for listening. Please comment and share your thoughts.
And always had a smile that charmed everyone in the room. My parents adored her. They framed every one of her awards and plastered her pictures all over the house. My own achievements? They were met with indifference.
Why are you even trying? You'll never be as good as your sister.
Birthdays were the clearest reminder of how little I mattered. When Grace turned 15, my parents threw her a grand party and gifted her a car. For my 10th birthday, they forgot entirely. Mom, is there a cake for my birthday?
Oh, stop bothering me. I'm busy.
I didn't even receive a wish from any of them. Of course, Grace hated me too. After all, I destroyed her only child position. It wasn't just about the celebrations, it was how they treated me daily. If Grace spilled juice on the carpet, my parents laughed it off.
Kids will be kids.
Ugh, she's so cute, our clumsy princess.
But if I so much as dropped a glass, the response was different.
Anna, you're so stupidly clumsy. Clean that up right now.
Punishments for me were swift and harsh. I was grounded for days for the smallest mistakes. Grace? She got a gentle talk, maybe a hug if she cried. Meals were another battleground. My parents always served Grace first, giving her the best portions. I often got whatever was left. I was a mistake. My parents never said it outright, but their actions spoke louder than words ever could. My sister Grace was their golden child. She was born at the perfect time, when they were young, successful, and ready to embrace parenthood. Then I came along, unplanned and unwanted, 5 years later. From the moment I could understand the world around me, I knew I didn't belong. My earliest memories were filled with contrasts like Grace basking in our parents' affection while I was relegated to the shadows, and comparisons.
Anna, stop making a mess. Why can't you be more like Grace?
Grace could do no wrong. She got straight A's, played the piano like a pro, and always had a smile that charmed everyone in the room. My parents adored her. They framed every one of her awards and plastered her pictures all over the house. My own achievements? They were met with indifference.
Why are you even trying? You'll never be as good as your sister.
Birthdays were the clearest reminder of how little I mattered. When Grace turned 15, my parents threw her a grand party and gifted her a car. For my 10th birthday, they forgot entirely. Mom, is there a cake for my birthday?
Oh, stop bothering me. I'm busy.
I didn't even receive a wish from any of them. Of course, Grace hated me too. After all, I destroyed her only child position. It wasn't just about the celebrations, it was how they treated me daily. If Grace spilled juice on the carpet, my parents laughed it off.
Kids will be kids.
Ugh, she's so cute, our clumsy princess.
But if I so much as dropped a glass, the response was different.
Anna, you're so stupidly clumsy. Clean that up right now.
Punishments for me were swift and harsh. I was grounded for days for the smallest mistakes. Grace? She got a gentle talk, maybe a hug if she cried. Meals were another battleground. My parents always served Grace first, giving her the best portions. I often got whatever was left.
Grace needs her strength. She's our future.
I didn't know what that made me, but it was clear I wasn't their priority. The worst part was how openly they favored Grace in public. At school events, They would cheer the loudest for her, while I stood on the sidelines, pretending it didn't hurt.
That's our girl. Grace, you're amazing.
When my turn came, they barely clapped. I stopped inviting them to my events altogether. The divide between us grew deeper as we got older. Grace thrived in the favoritism. She didn't need to work hard for their love. It was given freely. She basked in their attention and used it as a weapon against me.
Mom and Dad say I'm the smart one. Why don't you just stop trying? I'm 5 years older than you. I'm more beautiful, brilliant, and everyone loves me more. I have everything you can only wish for.
Her words stung, but I couldn't blame her entirely. She was just repeating what our parents had always made clear. There was one day I'll never forget. Grace had just won a regional spelling bee. My parents decided to take her out for a celebratory dinner at an expensive restaurant. I wasn't invited.
Stay home and do the dishes, Anna. This is Grace's moment. Don't ruin it for us. You're lucky enough to have been sent into this family by your creator. Make them proud and be obedient, will you?
I watched from the window as they drove off, leaving me alone in the house. That night, I made myself a peanut butter sandwich and cried myself to sleep. Even my room was a testament to their favoritism. Grace had a spacious, brightly lit room decorated with posters of her favorite musicians and shelves lined with trophies. I was given the smaller, darker room at the back of the house, with peeling wallpaper and a broken lamp they never bothered to fix.
You don't need anything fancy. Be grateful you have a roof over your head.
Gratitude. That's what they always demanded from me. Gratitude for the scraps of attention they threw my way. Gratitude for being allowed to exist in their home. Once, I overheard my parents talking late at night.
We shouldn't have had a second child. Things were perfect with Grace.
I know. Anna was a mistake, but we're stuck with her now. Let's try not to make another mistake. I can't deal with two Annas.
Hearing those words felt like a knife to my heart. They didn't see me as their daughter. I was a burden, a constant reminder of something they didn't want. The few moments I tried to bond with them ended in rejection. One summer, I asked my dad to teach me how to ride a bike, something he had done with Grace years earlier.
I'm too busy. Ask Grace to teach you.
Grace never had to ask for their time. It was given freely. I learned to stop asking. The emotional neglect turned into something more sinister as I grew older. My parents started blaming me for everything that went wrong in the house. If the bills were late, if the house was messy, if Grace was upset, it was always my fault.
If we didn't have to deal with you, life would be so much easier.
School became my refuge. Teachers praised my efforts, and friends offered me the kindness I never got at home. But even that wasn't safe from my parents' disdain.
Don't think good grades will make you better than Grace. She's still our star.
No matter how hard I tried, I couldn't win. The final straw came on a rainy afternoon when I accidentally broke Grace's favorite vase. She had been showing it off all week, a gift from our parents for her latest achievement. I didn't mean to knock it over, it was an accident. When my parents saw the shattered pieces, their anger was like a storm.
How could you? Do you know how expensive that was?
You're nothing but trouble, Anna.
I tried to explain, but they wouldn't listen.
She's just jealous because I'm better than her.
That night, they sent me to bed without dinner. I lay in the darkness, tears streaming down my face, wondering why I was even born. I realized something that night. I couldn't change them. I couldn't make them love me. But I could survive. I would find my own way, my own happiness, away from their shadows. When Grace got into college, she began wanting more, even though our parents practically handed everything to her. She craved more attention, power, and the thrill of getting away with anything. I didn't think much of it when she started hanging out with a new group of loud, flashy, and reckless friends. They came to the house once or twice, laughing and acting like they owned the world. My parents never questioned her choices. They would say she knew what she was doing and that she was just having fun. But Grace didn't know what she was doing. She was spiraling into something dangerous, and my parents were too blinded by their love for her to see it. It all started with money disappearing from my parents' account. Small amounts at first, but it grew larger every month. They thought it was an error.
I'll call the bank tomorrow. It's probably nothing serious.
Then one day, I overheard Grace on the phone in her room. talking about some big score and easy cash. I didn't know what it meant. When I tried to tell my parents, they dismissed me, as always.
Stop making up stories about your sister. You're just trying to get her in trouble.
2 weeks later, the police showed up at our doorstep. My parents were confused at first, standing in their perfect living room with their perfect daughter. But when the officers asked for Grace, everything shattered.
Miss Grace, you're under arrest for fraud, theft, and conspiracy.
What? This must be a mistake. Grace would never do such a thing.
But it wasn't a mistake. Grace had been stealing money from my parents and even went as far as borrowed money using their names without their knowledge. She used their accounts to fund her schemes, leaving them in debt. Thousands of dollars were gone, and Grace was at the center of it all. My parents begged the officers to let her go, but the evidence was overwhelming. Grace was taken away, leaving behind a trail of disbelief and devastation. She was found guilty in court and sentenced to 10 years in jail. In the days that followed, our house was eerily silent. My parents were consumed by guilt and despair. For the first time, they couldn't brush away the truth. Their perfect daughter wasn't so perfect after all.
She ruined us. What are we going to do?
We trusted her. How could she do this to us?
The debt Grace left behind was crushing. My parents had to sell some of their belongings to keep up with the payments. They even talked about selling the house. They were broken, not just financially, but emotionally. And that's when they turned to me. One evening, my mother knocked on my door. It was rare for her to come to my room, let alone speak to me in such a soft tone.
I know we haven't always treated you right, but we need you now. We're a family, and we need to stick together.
Her words made me laugh bitterly. And from the look on her face, it wasn't the reaction she expected. A family? Since when have we been a family?
We're sorry, Anna. We know we've been unfair to you, but we want to make things right.
Make things right? You mean now that Grace isn't here to be your perfect child? Now that you're drowning in debt because of her? Don't think you can suddenly use me as a replacement.
We've made mistakes, Anna, but we're trying.
No. You're not trying for me. You're trying because you have no one else. Where was this effort when I needed it? When I was the one crying in my room while you doted on Grace. Keep treating me the way you always have. I don't want your pity now. Moreover, I am moving out of your house. For your information, I have been working online for a while now and have saved enough to rent an apartment. I walked past them, leaving them speechless in my room. For once, I wasn't the one seeking their approval. I wasn't the one begging for scraps of their love. In the weeks that followed, they tried again and again to reach out to me. My mother cooked meals and invited me to join them at the table. My father asked about my schoolwork and offered to help, but I kept my distance. I wasn't ready to forgive them, and I wasn't sure if I ever would. Grace's arrest left scars that would never fully heal. My parents had to confront the reality they had spent years ignoring: their favoritism, their neglect, their misplaced trust. The police informed us that they discovered Grace was 3 weeks pregnant. Grace was pregnant and didn't even know who the father was. This news broke my parents even more. Whenever she gives birth, the child will be brought to my parents. The news saddened them, as they were already drowning in debt. Due to the money my parents were paying to cover their debt, they became broke. I heard they sold their house and now live in a one-bedroom flat with neighbors who play loud music all night. They had to look for jobs to sustain themselves. I heard my dad now drives a garbage truck, while my mom works as a maid for a wealthy family. Rumor has it that she is treated poorly in the house, but she has to keep the job to survive. As for me, I finally moved out and began to find my own strength. I didn't need their approval anymore. I had survived their rejection, and now I was learning to thrive despite it. As part of my revenge, I anonymously posted my dad's number online as a garbage collector. I heard he has been receiving non-stop calls to pick up trash, and he eventually had to change his phone number. For the first time in my life, I wasn't living in Grace's shadow, and I wasn't going to let anyone, not even my parents, dim my light again. Thanks for watching. Make sure to subscribe and leave a comment down below, saying I subscribed, and we will try our best to reply to your comment.
Hi, my name is Michael, and I wanted to share with you the grand tale of my success, although it took a lot of hard work and effort to get here. as things started off very rocky for me. My parents were very young, and they couldn't care for me, and so they gave me up for adoption. They felt that I would have a much better chance at life if they did so, even though it was the hardest thing that they ever had to do. It didn't take long for me to be adopted by a family in another city. My new parents were fairly wealthy and already had 2 daughters named Gloria and Emily, but had always wanted a son, and so they chose me. Growing up, they were always far stricter on me than on my sisters. If I broke something, then they would spank or hit me. Whereas my sisters would only be talked to, or at the very worst, they would be given a timeout. As I grew up, I learned to try to avoid getting in trouble and focus on doing my best in school. I didn't want to give my adoptive parents any reasons to yell at or discipline me. However, they always found reasons to do so anyways. They would always just treat me like a burden while treating my sisters like saints. When I got old enough, they started having me clean the house. It was simple things at first, such as dusting and sweeping, but eventually I was cleaning the entire house. On top of the cleaning, one day my adoptive mother said,
Michael, you have come of age. It's time for me to teach you how to cook. You lazy around a lot. You know I'm getting old, so I need you to assist me.
"You right, honey? Men should know how to cook." So she taught me how to cook and bake, and before long I was making everyone the family meals. I would have to wake up an hour early before anyone else and get breakfast and lunches ready for everyone. And then as soon as I got home from school, I needed to start getting dinner ready. It barely left me enough time for anything else, but I did manage to find time to study. Sadly, schoolwork was my only escape. Even on the weekends, my parents made sure that my days were filled with tidying up. From the moment I would wake up until the moment I would go to sleep. My parents would make me work while my sisters sat around and did nothing. For our birthdays, they would get video games or toys, and I would get mops and brooms. I knew that it was unfair that I was the only child doing chores, and that it wasn't normal for our parents to treat me the way that they did. But I had no choice but to do as they ordered me to do. It didn't help that my sisters were beginning to take lessons from our parents and force me to clean up after them.
Michael, you filthy pig. Clean my bathroom. Do it now, you lazy jerk.
And after you clean hers, then you can clean mine and also clean my room too.
But I have to study for an exam. Can't you two do it yourselves?
You can do that after you've done as we told you to do. Now get to it.
Although I was annoyed, I did as I was told, because I knew what would happen if I didn't. I was constantly tired as I could barely find enough time to sleep, since I was doing all of the chores, the cooking, the cleaning, and at the same time trying to find time to study. I began to hate my family for making me their own personal slave, and all because I was adopted. The older I got, the more they put on my plate. I always had bags under my eyes, while my sisters grew fat and lazier as the years dragged on. Even so, I managed to keep my grades high, and I did very well in school. It didn't hurt that I had no social life whatsoever, while my sisters constantly went out to parties and were barely passing their classes. Finally, when I was going to graduate from high school, I applied to every scholarship program that I could, and prayed that one of them would come to my rescue. To my surprise, my prayers were answered, and not only did I get one, but I was granted a full scholarship. I knew that I had found a way out, and I wrote a note saying that I was leaving, and left it on the kitchen table. Then I quickly packed up my bags, and as quietly as I could, I left the only home I had ever truly known. Before I left town to head to university, I stopped off at the police station and told them my situation. If I hadn't, then I had no doubt that my parents would try to claim that I ran away from home, or that I was kidnapped, and try to force me to return home. But by going to the police and notifying them that I was an adult and that I was leaving home on my own volition, then they couldn't contact the police and use them to force me to return home. And so, I went off to university and I never looked back. Between going to school and picking up a part-time job, I found that I actually had more free time than I ever had before. For the first time, I was actually able to have a social life, and it felt amazing. My time in university was such a breath of fresh air and was incredibly freeing. For the first time in my life, I was able to have friends and begin to date as well. In fact, in my third year of university, I met Angela, and the two of us became inseparable. It was a bit awkward, though, to explain to Angela what my family situation was, but she was quite understanding. After I graduated, I was able to find an entry-level position at an architectural firm. Thankfully, the company I worked for made a point of teaching me everything they knew, and it wasn't long before I became a partner. Shortly afterwards, Angela and I got married and bought a house in the same city that I grew up in. Our home was easily twice the size of the one that I grew up in, and since we both worked long hours, we knew that we would need to hire some staff to help maintain it. Between the two of us, though, we made more than enough money to cover everything. Soon after we moved in, I received a call from my sisters. Somehow, they had tracked me down and they wanted to meet with me. Reluctantly, I decided that enough time had passed, and although I would never be able to forgive them for what they had done, I was at the very least curious what had become of them. And so, returned to my childhood home and was surprised to see a large for sale sign on the front lawn. Inside, my two sisters were arguing and hadn't even noticed that I had entered.
This is all your fault. If you hadn't spent all of the money before Mom and Dad had passed away, then we wouldn't be forced to sell the house to pay for our debt.
Me? I didn't spend the money. You did when you kept buying all that fancy designer clothes.
And what about all your vacations? Honestly, we'll be lucky if we don't end up living on the street.
I couldn't believe what I was hearing. My adoptive parents had treated me like trash and had treated these two as queens. And now that they were gone, the two of them were falling apart at the seams. Well, the two of you could always move in with me. I could tell that I was the last person that they expected to see, and the look of shock was priceless.
Michael? Where did you come from?
Wait, are you serious?
Yes, of course, after I left home, my life got infinitely better. Although I'm not offering you a free ride, I'm offering you jobs. If you, the two of you, want to work as maids, then you can live with my family, but that's the best that I can offer you.
Maids? Are you insane? I would rather live on the street than be a maid for a loser like you.
And with that, Gloria stormed out of the room, but Emily stayed. I could tell that she didn't want to accept my offer, but she truly didn't have any other choice. And so reluctantly, she came home with me and started working for my wife and I. A few weeks later, though, Emily showed up on my doorstep and apologized and begged me to take her in as well. A few weeks living on the street had shown her that she had no other choice, and so the two of them became our maids. Unlike them, and my parents though, I did treat them well and made sure that they lived comfortably. It was rather poetic, really, that I was forced to be their servant for so many years, and now they would spend the rest of their lives serving me and my family. My only regret is that my parents didn't live to see how much they had messed up my sisters, or how I showed them compassion when they had never shown me any. Thanks for watching.